You came into her life with a real heart. You meant well. You cared in a way that was steady, patient, and honest. You listened. You showed up. You gave her trust that many people would never give so easily. You tried to see the good in her even when things started to feel off. You defended her when others pulled back. You told yourself she was hurting, not harmful. You thought maybe she only needed understanding. Maybe if you stayed calm, stayed kind, stayed loyal, she would soften and meet you in the middle. But slowly, what first looked like confidence became something heavier. It became control. The room started to revolve around her mood, her pain, her opinions, her needs. Your kindness became something she leaned on without respect. Your silence became something she read as permission. And before long, you were no longer living freely inside the relationship. You were managing it. You were measuring every word. You were trying not to upset her. You were walking on eggshells while she kept taking more of your energy, more of your peace, more of your sense of self. Then one day, something in you broke. Not because you stopped loving her, but because loving her was starting to cost too much. You stepped back to save yourself. And once the noise fades, one question tends to stay behind. Does she understand what she lost? Does she ever think about the person who truly cared, who stayed longer than most people ever would, who gave real love without trying to win a game? Stay with me, because the answer is not simple, and what happens next is often the part nobody sees. At first, she usually does not react the way you expect. She does not fall apart right away. She does not come running with tears and truth and deep reflection. In many cases, she acts like none of it matters. She may even look brighter than before, more active, more social, more polished. You might suddenly see smiling photos, happy posts, a new crowd, maybe even a new romance pushed into the light far too fast. But do not confuse performance with peace. What you are often watching is not healing, it is defense. She is not trying to process the loss, she is trying to cover the bruise to her ego. A woman like this does not just hate pain. She hates losing control. And when someone who once gave her steady attention finally pulls away, the first instinct is not always sadness. It is image management. She wants the world to believe she is untouched, strong, wanted, unbothered. More than that, she wants you to see it too. She wants you to doubt your decision. She wants you to wonder if you were the one who lost something valuable. That is why the show can be so sharp, so clean, so quick. She may not miss you yet in the way healthy love misses a person. What she misses first is the role you played, the attention, the emotional focus, the way your care reflected value back to her. And that is important to understand, because when she seems to move on in record time, it often is not growth, it is escape. It is noise covering a silence she cannot yet bear. And if you have ever looked at that sudden glow up and felt replaced, keep listening, because what comes next tells a very different story. When the act stops working, the story starts changing. This is where blame enters. Quietly at first, then all at once, suddenly you become too sensitive, too needy, too difficult, too emotional, too distant, too much, or somehow not enough. The facts bend, the timeline shifts, the damage gets rewritten. She does this because facing her own part feels too painful, too threatening, too real. Accountability asks her to sit with guilt, and guilt is something she has spent years avoiding. So instead of carrying it, she hands it to you. You become the container for her discomfort. And that is why this stage hurts so deeply, because you know what you did. You know how many times you stayed calm when you wanted to scream. You know how often you forgave what should never have become normal. You know how much of yourself you poured into keeping peace. Yet in her version, you become the villain, the one who failed her, the one who caused the distance, the one who forced her hand. This is not just unfair. It is disorienting. It can make you question your own memory. And that confusion is part of the power. If she can make you doubt yourself, she can protect her own image without ever changing. She may tell others a clean story where she is the wounded one and you are the source of chaos. She may grab tiny details and stretch them until they look like proof. And if you try to explain, she may call it attack. If you ask for honesty, she may call it pressure. If you describe what happened, she may call it drama. So hold on to what is real. Hold on tight. Remember the pattern, not the apology. Remember the behavior, not the speech. Because when truth starts getting twisted, memory becomes your shield. Then the noise fades. And this is when reality begins to knock. The new people do not feel the same. The attention from outside does not carry the same warmth. The fresh excitement that once looked so convincing starts to lose color. And underneath all of that motion, something colder starts to rise. Emptiness. Not the kind she can post away. Not the kind she can fix with a new face, a new place, a new distraction. This is the moment where your absence begins to feel real, not because you were perfect, but because you were consistent. You listened, you remembered, you showed care in the small ways that matter most. You offered emotional safety. And once that is gone, the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. She may never say it out loud, but she starts measuring others against what you gave. Who shows up when it is not convenient? Who keeps their word? Who notices the little things? Who brings calm instead of confusion? That is when the loss starts to sting in a deeper way. Because now it is not just about losing attention. It is about losing someone who actually cared, someone who was real, someone whose love was not a game. And when that truth starts landing, the mask can slip. Nights feel heavier, silence gets louder, boredom becomes restless. She may look irritated for no clear reason. She may seem strangely low, even while trying to act fine. And if she senses that you are truly gone, not just distant for a moment, that is when the first real consequence hits. Not the public kind, the private kind, the kind that cannot be fixed with a caption. If you have ever wondered whether she eventually feels it, this is the answer. Yes, often she does. But feeling it and learning from it are two very different things. That is why the comeback often happens right here. Not at the start, but after the silence has done its work, after the new people fail to fill the space, after the ego stops getting fed the way it once did. Then the messages can start. A random check-in, a soft tone, a small apology, a memory dropped into your day, a little kindness that feels almost like the person you hope she could be. It can be confusing, it can be powerful, because part of you still remembers the good moments. And when she returns with warmth, it touches the wound directly. But be careful, a return does not always mean love. Sometimes it means she misses access. Sometimes it means she wants to know whether she still matters to you, whether she can still pull emotion out of your chest with only a few words. A woman like this often cannot stand being forgotten. She wants to feel the thread is still there. And that is why so many people get pulled back in. Not because they are weak, but because the softness looks real enough to awaken hope. She may sound gentler, more aware, more human. She may say she has changed. She may say she understands now. But words come cheap in moments like these. What matters is pattern. What matters is depth. What matters is whether the apology has roots or whether it is only bait dressed as closure. Watch closely. Is she naming what she did with clarity or only speaking in vague emotional fog? Is she respecting your boundaries or trying to rush past them with charm? Is she offering steady change or just trying to get back into the emotional house you once lived in for free? Stay with this point, because many people lose their healing right here by mistaking re-entry for transformation. If you let her back in too soon, the old cycle often returns with a familiar face and a slightly softer voice. At first, things can feel almost magical. She seems warmer, more attentive, more open. You begin to think maybe the loss changed her. Maybe the distance helped her grow. Maybe this time will be different. But then the pattern starts breathing again. Warm becomes cold, close becomes distant, sweet becomes sharp. She tests, she pulls. She waits to see whether you will chase, explain, prove, beg, soothe, fix. This is the emotional whiplash that wears people down. It is not love becoming complicated, it is control wearing the costume of connection. The back and forth creates a powerful chemical loop. You live for the warm moments, you fear the cold ones, and slowly, without noticing, your peace gets traded for hope. That is how the trap works, not through constant cruelty, but through contrast. Good moments arrive just often enough to keep you invested. Bad moments cut just deep enough to keep you unstable. And instability makes people try harder. They become more patient, more forgiving, more focused on getting back to the version of the relationship that only appears in flashes. But a healthy bond does not train you to survive it. A healthy bond does not make you earn basic respect again and again. A healthy bond does not leave you guessing which version of someone will show up tonight. So if she returns and the cycle returns with her, believe the cycle, not the promise, not the chemistry, not the memory, because this is the fork in the road where many people lose years. One road is peace with pain that slowly heals. The other is intensity with pain that repeats. And your future changes depending on which one you choose. Over time, something even more complicated can happen. She may begin to regret what she lost, really regret it, not in a full, deep, healed way at first, but enough to feel the ache. She notices that no one gives her what you gave in the same way. No one offers the same patience. No one holds space with the same steadiness. No one makes room for her storms quite like you did. And that awareness can hit hard. But this is where many people misunderstand regret. Regret is not the same as growth. Regret can simply mean she misses comfort. She misses support. She misses being understood without having to earn it. She misses the ease of being loved by someone who kept trying. That pain is real, yes, but it still may be centered on her needs, not on your wounds. She may feel angry that she cannot replace what you were. She may feel sad that the safety is gone. She may even tell herself that you were special, rare, different from the rest. All of that can be true. But truth alone does not rebuild character. Character changes only when a person can look honestly at the damage they caused without rushing to blame someone else. And that kind of humility is hard, very hard. It asks a person to step down from the story where they are always right, always justified, always wounded first. Most never fully do that. They want relief without repair. They want the feeling back without the work. So if you ever hear that she regrets losing you, do not rush to see that as proof of a new heart. Sometimes regret is just frustration wearing emotional language. Sometimes it is grief for what she received, not grief for what she did. As that regret grows, it often turns inward and begins to shake the image she built of herself. This is the battle most people never witness. On the outside, she may still act proud, polished, superior, untouched, but inside, something starts wobbling. If she believed she could always replace anyone, and now she cannot replace what you gave, that hits the identity. If she believed admiration would always return on demand, and now it does not feel the same, that creates panic. So she begins swinging between extremes. One day she acts fully over it, cold and above the whole thing. The next day she sinks into self-pity, sadness, or quiet anger that seems to come from nowhere. She may suddenly talk about improving herself. She may start using the language of healing, growth, self-awareness, becoming better, and sometimes a part of her may even mean it. But do not be fooled by the look of change if the roots are still shallow. Real change is quiet before it is visible. It happens when a person stops performing transformation for applause and starts doing hard, private work without needing an audience. That means facing patterns, it means accepting limits, it means tolerating shame without dumping it onto someone else, it means learning to sit with truth instead of editing it. That is a long road, a painful road, a road with no instant reward. And most people who depend heavily on admiration struggle to walk it all the way. So what you may see instead is a polished version of self-improvement, One still built for attention. It can look convincing. It can sound wise. But lasting growth is not measured by how moving the speech is. It is measured by how steady the behavior becomes when nobody is watching. And while all of this may be happening on her side, the real question is what it does to you. Because seeing even a small sign that she finally understands can mess with your head. It can wake up hope you were trying hard to bury. You may start telling yourself, maybe she gets it now. Maybe the pain changed her. Maybe all this time apart has finally shown her what she lost. And that thought can be tempting, especially if a part of you still wants the story to end differently. But pause there. Think about what it cost you the first time. Think about your sleep, your peace, your confidence, the way you started second-guessing your own reality, the way your body learned tension, the way your mind stayed busy trying to predict the next shift, the next mood, the next cold silence, the next sudden warmth. Think about how much of yourself was spent just trying to make love feel safe. A person who truly changes does not just return with emotion. She returns with responsibility. She returns with patience for your boundaries. She returns with proof, not pressure. And if that is missing, then what you are seeing is not a new foundation. It is an old pattern asking for another chance to enter through a softer door. This is the part of the story where you have to choose what matters more: the dream of who she could become, or the truth of what repeated behavior already showed you. And if that sounds hard, it is. But clarity often begins where fantasy finally ends. So before you open any door, ask yourself one simple thing. Am I being invited into something different, or am I being tempted back into something familiar? Healing after a woman like this is not clean. It is not quick. And it is rarely as simple as walking away and never looking back. You may miss her. That is normal. You may miss the attention, the intensity, the late-night closeness, the moments when she made you feel seen in a way that felt electric. You may replay the good scenes and wonder whether maybe things were not as bad as they felt. That happens because the mind does not only store pain, it also stores relief, longing, chemistry, and the emotional high that came after the low. But what you miss is not always healthy love. Often, what you miss is the illusion of it, the dramatic rhythm of being pulled close and pushed away, the feeling of being wanted intensely, even if it was never held gently. Real love does not leave you exhausted all the time. Real love does not punish you for asking for respect. Real love does not make you feel crazy for naming what hurts. So healing begins when you stop waiting for her to wake up and start waking up yourself. It begins when you stop watching her pages, stop reading hidden meaning into every message, stop measuring your worth by whether she comes back or not. It begins when you learn that peace may feel quiet at first, even boring, because chaos trained your nervous system to confuse intensity with connection. Give that process time. Let your body learn calm again. Let your mind stretch back into truth. Let your heart understand that stable love may not feel like fireworks in the beginning, but it also does not burn down your life. And if this is speaking directly to your story, keep listening, because the final piece matters more than most people realize. To be fair, some people do change. A few truly do reach a point where the pain they caused becomes impossible to deny, and instead of running from that truth, they turn and face it. They get help. They learn to listen without defending. They accept boundaries without turning them into insults. They stop making every hard conversation about their own injury. They begin to show empathy not only in words, but in action, in patience, in consistency over time. That kind of change can happen. But when it is real, it is never built in a weekend. It does not appear in one emotional message. It does not arrive wrapped in urgency. It grows slowly, quietly, repeatedly. And most important, it does not ask you to risk your healing just to prove you are still loving. So if she ever does become someone healthier, that is her journey, not your assignment. You do not have to stand in the doorway of your own future waiting to see whether she finally becomes who she should have been when you were still there. Your life cannot stay paused while someone else debates honesty. Your freedom begins the moment you stop explaining your pain to a person who kept using it against you. And even if she never fully admits what she did, even if the apology never comes, even if she carries regret and silence for years, you are still allowed to move on. More than allowed, you are meant to. Because closure does not belong only to the one who caused the wound. Closure also belongs to the one who survived it. And sometimes the strongest thing you will ever do is stop waiting for understanding from the person who benefited most from misunderstanding you. The hardest truth is this: you may never hear the full apology. You may never get the clean confession, the complete honesty, the moment where she names every wound and finally sees it the way you lived it. That hurts. It hurts because a part of you wants justice to sound like words. But closure is often quieter than that. It comes when you accept that you did your best. You loved with sincerity. You stayed with patience. You tried longer than many people would have. And when the relationship became unsafe for your heart, you left. That was not failure. That was wisdom arriving late, but still arriving in time. You did not abandon love. You stopped abandoning yourself. And that changes everything. If you ever loved a woman like this, hear this clearly. Your love was not worthless just because she could not hold it well. The care you gave was real. The loyalty you offered was rare. The fact that she did not know how to receive it says more about her limits than your value. So do not stand still waiting for her regret to turn into redemption. Do not build your future around whether she one day understands your worth. In many ways, she already does. That is why your absence can haunt her. But understanding your worth is not the same as being capable of honoring it. And that is the final truth. She may regret losing you. She may feel the emptiness. She may replay your kindness when life gets cold. But regret alone cannot love you properly. Only change can do that. So keep walking, keep healing, keep choosing what is calm, honest, and safe. Because one day you will meet someone who does not need to lose you to value you. And when that day comes, you will finally understand why this ending had to happen the way it did. If this message spoke to your experience, stay with that truth, hold on to your peace, and remember, the right love will never need your pain to discover your worth.